Yeah, I mean, we don't see that happening over the coming weeks or months. That's slightly longer term view, but it's very much being driven on the supply side. A lot of that is down to around the US decision to reimpose sanctions and the volumes that will come out of the market as a result of that. And it's also a function of the big drop-off in spending that we've seen over the past several years. The pipeline of new projects coming online has thinned significantly, and we really don't see the supply there over the next few years to offset natural decline rates and also to meet rising demand.
Emma, you of course hear from the Saudi energy ministry. He said, of course, that $1 trillion have been lost in terms of not just expansion, but also in terms of increasing the value chain, investing in new technologies. It's going to have to be a lot more of that in the coming years. I'm here on the sidelines of the World Heavy Oil Congress in Oman. They're talking about exactly that. How much more needs to be done in that time frame?
Yeah, I think a lot more investment needs to come into the market. I think, obviously, we have seen some decent gains made in terms of cutting costs, getting kind of more bang for your buck, and on the technology side, some productivity gains, getting more barrels out of the reservoir, and all of that helps at the margin to make more of the reserves that we have and to grow that production with less capital. But I just don't think it's enough with what's being spent at this stage.
Emma, when you talk about the impact that the looming Iran sanctions will have on the oil price environment, there is a question out there as to what extent Saudi Arabia can step in and really helps offset any supply impact here. We know the U.S. has put pressure on them to do so, but just how willing do you think Saudi Arabia will be to try and offset the supply disruption? I mean, what are we talking about in quantities here?
I think certainly you could see them bringing several 100,000 barrels per day more back, and obviously they have a massive amount of spare capacity, up to kind of 12 million barrels per day. So there's a lot that they can do, like you said, to offset the declines in Iran. And actually, if Saudi Arabia were to use its full spare capacity, then that would be sufficient to completely offset the losses. But I just don't think it's likely that they will do that. The spare capacity that Saudi Arabia has is so key to them. It's such a big strategic tool that they have. And if they bring all of that spare capacity into play, then they lose a lot of the influence that they have over the market. So they will do something, but it's unlikely to be enough to offset everything that we're seeing going out of the market from Iran.
And Emma, that's arguably the big factor here on the supply side of things. But what about demand? I mean, when you're talking about $90 a barrel for Brent, that's your long-term forecast, I understand. But are you not at all worried about weaker demand coming from this trade fight as we speak? Because a lot of concerns here that the U.S. could only be ramping it up with perhaps another $200 billion of tariffs on Chinese goods, and what that could mean, if anything, for demand, for global growth.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and that's the biggest risk factor for us really is on that demand side. I think in general the macroeconomic picture has become more challenging over the last few quarters. We've got the rising dollar, we've got tighter liquidity, emerging markets are looking a bit more under pressure, and as you said, we've also got the heightened trade disputes with the US and several other countries. So yeah, there are definitely risks on the demand side, and if we do see those come to fruition, then that could certainly dampen the outlook. It's not our house view at the moment that will happen, but the risks, as you say, are certainly there.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.